I think one of the big benefits with a fractional CMO is that person's typically going to work with many different companies, many different industries. And I think the best ideas, they rarely come from the industry that you're in.
Welcome to the Fractional Edge Podcast, the ultimate podcast where we unlock the power of workforce planning and discuss the rapidly growing fractional executive staffing strategies to supercharge your business.
Meet your hosts, Carol Fraser, a workforce planning expert, fractional chief human resources officer, and founder of C4 Talent.
And Jason Huett, the sensei of marketing, fractional chief marketing officer, and founder of Fifth Degree Marketing.
We'll bring you insights from seasoned pros, inspiring success stories, and actionable strategies to optimize your valued workforce.
Don't miss this chance to upgrade your business with top industry leaders in today's competitive landscape. So tune in and learn how to unleash your competitive edge. Welcome to the Fractional Edge. My name is Carol Fraser. I am your co-host, and you have the pleasure of now being introduced to my co-host, Jason Huett, who I am going to put onto the hot seat with some questions. So first, Jason, tell us a little bit about you, your journey, and how you ended up being a fractional CMO.
Yeah. Well, I would say us marketers are always looking to stand out in the mind of the consumer, right? So I usually open by telling people my very first job. I went to school, University of Wisconsin-Madison, so I'm a Badger here in Wisconsin. And I usually tell people that the first job I got out of college was a professional stuntman with the Power Rangers. And it's like, people are like, no, you're making that up. But no, that was actually my first job. My parents, I don't think were too pleased with that career choice after putting me through school.
I can totally empathize with your parents because my kid's a circus performer.
Yeah, true story, right? Yeah, and so you and I were actually out in California at about the same time. I was out there in kind of 90, 98, 99, 2000 time. But yeah, that was my first job. So I'm a trained martial artist, fifth degree black belt. I studied multiple styles, American Taekwondo, and then also a form called Kobudo, which is Japanese farm implements. There's bow staff, nunchuck, all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff that you see.
Well, you needed to, right? Because you were the stunt guy.
Yeah. So that was it was a great job. After I got back from California, I was out there, but and I know you get this. As much as I loved it, it was a fun job. It wasn't my calling. I have always been a teacher. Actually, I started teaching martial arts when I was 15 years old, and so I knew. After I moved back to California, I knew that I wanted to move back. So yeah, basically back in 2002, I moved back to Madison, and Madison was kind of a unique mecca of martial arts school owners. I've always been a competitor. As you get to know me, I like testing myself. So I went up against the largest franchise in Wisconsin, opened up right next to them. Looking back at it, tremendously foolish probably, but.
That's how we grow through adversity.
Yeah. I mean, you either swim or sink. So I grew that. I spent the first year, in the business, really doing a lot of the teaching, and then I moved into marketing and operations. I was the CEO of the company and grew that from a single location to 4 locations. Ended up licensing it because basically the franchise law here in Wisconsin is very difficult. So I ended up going with a licensed type setup, and then. I exited that, sold it actually in 2015, and I moved into CMO work. And so I'm completely industry agnostic. I know I keep hearing the advice. People tell me, hey, Jason, you really should focus on an industry. But for me, there's just a certain attraction to working across different industries because usually the best ideas come from outside industry. So yeah, for the past 3+ years, I've been a fractional CMO. I've got clients in different industries from manufacturing to technology, ed tech. A lot of SaaS, B2B SaaS is very popular, and then everywhere from the UK to the United States and beyond. So that's my story.
So marketing, like human resources, has a lot of different specialties. So, what is it that you kind of bring to the table as a fractional CMO? Like, where is your go-to magic? Similar to me, I can do 1,000 things, but where is your go-to magic?
Yeah, so again, I'm an oddball in every sense of the way, but especially marketing, because most marketers, that are career marketers, started probably with a company, maybe a smaller company, worked their way up the ladder, jumped to a larger company. I only worked for two companies. I won't count one of them because I was so young, but really one in my late 30s, and I lasted 5 months. It was not for me, and so most of my career has been spent as an entrepreneur. So I wear everything that as far as I approach marketing. I'll say this about being an entrepreneur: being a CMO is way easier than being the CEO. I've been in that seat, technically still in that seat for one of my companies, but it's much easier. So everything, I usually, when I am kicking off with a client, I'll say, if you're looking for kind of, the standard marketing corporate career, that's not me. I've gone from $0, to seven figures and been very, lean is probably the word I could use, very lean in getting there. But everything I do, I understand, every different function of the business, because I've owned, operated, founded businesses. And so I'm an entrepreneur through and through. And that comes out in all of my marketing. So I'd say probably most in the strategy, how I think about marketing tends to be a little bit broader maybe than typical.
So then what are some of the common challenges that the businesses that you're working with are usually facing when it comes to marketing?
Yeah, well, this is, it's always changing, I'll say that. So one challenge is definitely the marketing technology. So I'll date myself a little bit. When I started my first business, we were doing a lot of radio and TV, and you never hear about that anymore. I guess you hear about, ad placements on Netflix or, Hulu, but the traditional TV is something that kind of died away. Not to say that there aren't certain types of businesses that could still benefit from that, but I'd say just keeping up with the technology, the platforms and the technology. Every single month there's something new that's coming out. And then I'd say the other big one is mindset, because most CEOs, especially in startups, they want instant results, right? We need revenue now or yesterday. And so there's kind of this balance between creating something that's going to stand the test of time, that's going to be very strategic and well thought out, and getting leads in the door that produce revenue. So that's pretty much across the board. Every business owner wants revenue, and how you get there it can be challenging.
And really the benefit, when you think about it, when you're bringing on a fractional executive with their specialty, they do have that dual hat, right? So you can see their business through that CEO lens, because you are as well a CEO. And then you also get to bring your specific magic to their vision. So it really is kind of a no-brainer when you think about it, especially with marketing, because marketing is so fluid nowadays. You do need to kind of bring people in that have the time to that's their primary focus.
Yes, yeah, and I would say the other probably the other factor is my background. You get hit pretty hard. And being a martial arts guy, I always use the analogies of, in business you can get hit pretty hard. And so I always tell my clients, I say I'm a black belt. And it's actually one of the things I cover with them right away, because the mindset of a black belt is one of respect, respect for others, i.e. you always want to be open to others' ideas. And I always tell the CEOs, you may have an idea. A lot of them will say, I'm not a marketer, I don't know what I'm doing, but that's not true, because you've probably learned how to sell something, which tells me you know something about marketing. But my background, I've always believed in working with the best coaches and mentors. And so for the past 20 years, I've had an executive coach, Ian McFarlane, who I'm sure we'll have on this podcast at some point. But he taught me most of what I know about marketing in terms of the principles. And I'd say that's one of the most powerful things is there's always going to be a new platform, a new technology, a new social media, this, that, or the other. But those marketers that understand the principles, the foundational principles of good communication, are the ones that typically win the most.
So I'm curious, we're at a big shift right now, big fluctual change with AI. How is AI helping or hindering your success as a fractional CMO?
Yeah, so it's a wonderful question because there's a lot of people that are scared and worried about this, and of course, there's the dark side of AI. We all know that it's got incredible power, and I think we're trying to understand what that power looks like. But I'll use copywriting, for example. I have a lot of friends that are copywriters, and when ChatGPT first came out, they were all very, very concerned. I will say, I think where we currently stand right now, from what I've seen in the technology, there still is a critical benefit of having a human being that understands the foundational principles, because you still have to be able to ask the right questions to AI to get the output that you want. I use it frequently. I'll test, if I'm testing headlines, or if I'm working on copy, I will throw it into ChatGPT to see what it comes up with. And sometimes I do, I like their version better, but it's never a copy and paste type of thing. It still needs some critical thinking and thought process behind it before you can use it.
Somebody made the comment that it takes away the blank page paralyzation.
Yes.
So you're not starting with a blank page. You at least have somebody. It's like that entry-level copywriter kind of role. It's like, here's my idea, go find me the information kind of a thing. So at least from there, how do you see AI supporting you and your clients to delivering the results that they're looking for from their marketing strategy?
Yeah, well, so part of that chapter is being written right now and going to be written here in the future. Right now, at least in the marketing world, I think AI is being used on a pretty rudimentary basis. So basically look at this copy, look at this headline, and I think there's going to come a point where that's going to be leveraged to a much higher degree in terms of kind of sourcing data and lead generation. There are some capabilities there right now, but it's not as refined as it's going to get. We're going to see that much more advanced in the future. So yeah, I think every business needs to be aware of it and embrace it to a certain degree, because it is coming, and if you know how to use it and leverage it, it's going to be a game changer.
Yeah, it's almost like people have spent so much time creating that differentiating message so that it attracts the clients or the customer that they want. And this AI, if it's overused, it's just creating a generalization backslide, right? And then we have to work really hard to bring it back to something that's more customized and targeted. I can just imagine now if we don't keep the human element, and we aren't really taking the human emotion in the components around marketing into account, and how we as emotional, blood pumping, crazy people always change our minds. What AI has pumped out for you, which is, kind of looking back with the data that it's able to pull, is going to be outdated. And without having a fractional CMO in your arsenal of strategy, you are in essence kind of putting unnecessary speed bumps, unnecessary blockers to your success, because you are putting all of your eggs into an automated messaging basket.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I'll use marketing automation because you had asked, kind of what's the value. So I'm a trained marketing automation. I've been on every platform, but that is originally where I started. I went very, very deep with marketing automation. And when marketing automation first came out, this goes back to, probably early 2000s, right in there, you started seeing a lot of these platforms pop up. Marketers loved it. It was, it's like any new technology. All right, we can do things we could never do before, and at a scale. And if you were a first mover, if you were an early adopter, you're going to see the benefit of that. Like Google Ads. I remember placing Google Ads and thinking, I can't believe I'm paying 5 cents a click. This is too expensive. Fast forward to today, same thing's going to happen, with AI. There's going to be this adoption curve, but I think it's wise to have someone in your organization that is keeping a pulse on that. It's going to move fast. Anyone that doesn't adapt is going to be probably negatively impacted, but those who do adapt and learn how to leverage it, even on a minimal scale, are going to see huge benefits.
So now, in a marketing campaign for your clients, how are you measuring the success of the campaign? And how are you, since you're involved in automation, what do the metrics look like?
Yeah. So, and this is kind of where in the world of marketing, attribution, everyone's fighting over attribution and it's getting harder and harder. I think that, one of the keys there's a saying, and I can't remember who said it. It was a famous marketer. He said, I know half my advertising is working. I just don't know which half. It might have been Jack Trout. Could have been Jack Trout. I'll have to look that up. But, marketing swings, just like any other human resources. You have trends that kind of come up and then they subside. And in marketing, attribution, it's been a hot topic for a long time now. We want to attribute, we want to see the spend that we're making come back. I'd say with startups, they tend to be more sensitive towards that. Big brands like the Cokes and the Pepsis, they understand the power of brand. And in terms of kind of this, we talk to a lot of SMB and mid-sized businesses. There's a balance. And so if you put all your eggs in the direct response basket and none of it in the brand basket, you can be thrown, I think, more easily by the next tech platform that releases. So there's a balancing act. And a lot of times that's dictated by the CEO and the executive team's kind of philosophy, their growth philosophy. One thing that I can't stress enough is before you jump in, I would say I see a lot of organizations jump right into the tactics. Why do we do that, right? Agencies are notorious, right, for selling that tactic. Well, they say strategy, but they give you the tactics and they implement the tactics. If you're driving in your car and you want to go to California, you're in Wisconsin, I've got to go west, right? But you don't have a map and you don't know where the destination is, it's going to be really difficult to get there. So I think, with all my clients, what I try to do, usually there's a bit of a reframe, because most people think marketing is advertising, they're synonymous. But I like to step back and ask them, let's talk about your goals. Used to be we'd plan those goals 3-5 years out. Now, let's talk about the first year. Where do you want to be at the end of that first year? What does success look like? And for me, marketing is math and creativity. And so we need to work backwards to create that strategy. So that all starts with the goal, though. And you'd be surprised. I won't say most, I'd say a good portion of my clients, when I ask them that question, they're not sure what the goal is. So we need to get specific. If you don't have a goal, it's really tough to get there.
One of the things that you mentioned, and I, as a CEO and having been a CEO from 2000 to 2014, but then taking a hiatus and coming back, as you had just mentioned, whether you did print or you did, television or whatever, that's not what we do today. And then you talked about the difference between strategy and tactics. Can you kind of give a high level of which one of those is, which one of those are? Because I think many people think the tactics are strategy.
Yeah, so if you haven't read Simon Sinek, any of his work, he's a great one because he outlines what he calls his why, and so strategy's the why, and when you move into, I should say, strategy's the why and the how on a high level, and tactics are really the what. What are we going to do? What's the timing going to look like? What's the offer going to look like? That's all tactical. So strategy, and there's a difference between you've got business strategy, right? And so that business strategy, how are we going to go about, what type of business do we have? What are the solutions we're providing? That needs to align with the marketing strategy. All of the core messaging, how do we reach clients? What are we trying to convey to those clients? And then the tactics, now we're talking about, we're going to do paid ads, Google ads, SEO. Those are all more tactical. And there's a bit of a blend between the three, but yeah, typically you want to have the business and the marketing strategy aligned. That's a key. And then the tactics really are the doing part of the equation, driving the actual results.
Gotcha. So I'd love to hear a success story that you've had with a client. as a fractional CMO?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, so yeah, let me think about it. I'll try to keep it fairly recent here. Okay, so I had a company out of the UK, and this was interesting. It was my first client out of the UK, and they brought me on. They had they were for profit, but their clientele were nonprofits, and so they had a platform that basically it was somewhat sophisticated because they had multiple almost sub companies within their main company. Their main business was developed by helping their clients fundraise money. Very, very successful company. And they came in and they said, this is the project. And so it was a more tactical project. They hired me on as fractional CMO, but it was a more tactical project. And that's not uncommon. They say we want a fractional CMO to come in, and you end up, if it's a new division, a lot of times you end up getting your hands very dirty. I know some CMOs don't like to do that, but my philosophy is whatever the client needs, let's get it done. And so this particular, they had grown their business. A lot of it was word of mouth. They had a great web presence, but they hadn't tapped any type of paid advertising or social media. Was very, very underdeveloped, and this is in 2022, so social media for most companies can play a pretty big part. So we came in and they came to me and they said, we want to have a presence on LinkedIn. So this was just purely a LinkedIn play. We ended up creating content. So there's a bit of a content play in there, resources, downloadable resources and videos. And we produced leads at 60% under the industry average for that category. So it was a very narrow scope, but we ended up having to turn it off because the infrastructure wasn't there to deal with the inflow of leads. And it doesn't always happen like that. More times than not, you don't see a first campaign launch and just kind of blow the sides off the house. But that's what happened. So it was a great success. They have since developed the infrastructure, the sales infrastructure that they needed to, be successful.
Excellent. It's interesting how you're able to educate and raise awareness to CEOs as a fractional CMO that it is a tactic, and if the almost like the moral of the story is, had you included me into the strategy, we could have talked about what does success look like, and is your sales team ready? Right? Because we always want to, everybody, a CEO, a fractional executive always wants to go in and think, we're going to be successful. That's why we're all coming together. And absent of that, in my world of workforce planning, absent of being a part of the input, your outputs may not be what you expected. Or they could be too good and you can't service them, which means that you more than met your objective, but you couldn't handle it. So that was a very interesting story.
Yeah.
So when you see the future of marketing and the role of the fractional CMO or just the fractional executive in general, how do you see that coming about in the next 3-5 years?
Yeah. Well, I can almost guarantee 5 years it's going to look extremely different than what it does today. That rate of change just across the board in every industry is
increasing, but it's doing so at a much more rapid pace than ever before. So I would say be flexible in mindset, because what you know today, most of it probably will have morphed or changed totally, and AI is a great example of that. And again, that's one reason to focus more on the strategy, because the tactics are always going to change. Just in this month of July 2023, there's new platforms. Threads just came out. So I always try to remain flexible and as platform agnostic as I can. Of course, I have my favorite platforms, but I am ready for the day that shifts and changes.
So now in marketing, you're going in as a fractional CMO. What are your thoughts about those who have a component of marketing as their magic? So somebody coming in as a fractional brand strategy leader or a fractional product strategy leader. What is your thoughts around something like that as the fractional executive community and world kind of tends to grow?
So much of that's dependent on your function, the human resources function, right? And because every organization is different. And most times when I come in, I'd say majority of the time, I'm brought in to help recruit and develop that team. So I do work with HR, and I know the importance and value of making the right selection as much of the time as I can. And so I think that's key as far as what type of fractional. Every business is going to have different needs, and so I think the executive team has to step back and say, what's our need? And I believe I might have that fractional CMO title, but I rarely operate in a silo. Whenever I can, I usually try to work with, especially HR, in that capacity because they have tools and insight that I just don't have. I guess in the first business that I ran, I started studying personality profile, and I realized after having learned about the different personalities that exist, I was hiring people all like myself. In marketing, it's very easy to do. I've got a background in marketing automation and email and copywriting. I'm going to hire people with that skill set. But it's a lot like building a great sports team. You've got, if you're playing baseball, you've got good infield, a good outfield, good offense and good defense. And so a good fractional chief, anything CXO, is going to be a good leader and someone that can identify talent. Now, they might not have the tactical tools like someone like yourself has, but they know where to go to get that help.
Yeah. And look, there's communities out there with those types of fractional executives just waiting to be a strategic partner. So
yes.
When you think about what businesses are struggling with right now in their marketing goals, could you give any advice to our listeners, our CEOs, our owners, our executive leaders around how to build marketing goals?
Yeah, I think so much that's tied to the team, but I would say, one is know your metrics. So your CAC, your LTV, those are obviously very important numbers. And
those acronyms are foreign to me. What are those?
I'm sorry, cost of acquiring customers. Yeah, I'm geeking out marketing wise. Those are more, I would say, marketers aren't as focused probably on those unless they're in a larger organization. LTV is long-term customer value. And so, I mean, one of the most, I think, powerful reasons to know those metrics, and you'd be surprised at how many business owners look at marketing just as an expense. So when I say, what do you think you can spend on marketing? They go to, well, this is our budget, which isn't tied to any type of context. And so if you know what the value of your customer is and you know what your target cost to acquire the customer is, it becomes a mathematical equation. Now, the creative deployment of resources will attract those customers. The creative can have a big impact. But I can't tell you how many times I've talked to an executive team. I would say, what is your target to acquire a customer? And a lot of times the answer is, I don't know, or this is what it is. But the LTV, long-term customer value, is a massive amount. I've got one client. The LTV is low six figures, and they didn't know how much they'd be willing to spend to acquire a customer. So then, in terms of competition, if you're willing to spend more to acquire that customer, when I say spend more, I'm not just talking direct marketing, advertising, but there's branding. All that goes into that equation. Usually, if you have a better budget and better execution, you're going to gain customers faster than the competition. And it can be surprising sometimes that competition isn't spending a whole lot. They're not investing a whole lot to acquire those customers. It's different for every industry, but yeah, I would say know your metrics and have a plan for when you do, kind of going back to the martial arts analogy, when you get hit, you got to get back up. It's really about testing and measuring. I always tell clients, I say, I know I'm going to swing and miss sometimes, but the goal is to swing and hit more times than I miss.
Yeah, I mean, it's the growth mindset because you're trying to sell to people who have free will and can change their mind. And so just keep hitting, keep swinging at it, right? Keep swinging at the ball and see, as long as you are hitting more than you are missing, you're at least moving into the right direction. And don't get paralyzed by the losses, right? Let's focus on how we continue to take that as a learning opportunity and move it to adjusting on the strategy.
Absolutely. Well said.
So what is the one question you wanted me to ask you, Jason, that I didn't?
Oh, great question. I should have been thinking about this here. One interesting question is, why hire a fractional CMO versus a W-2, a full-time CMO? And again, there's benefits to both, but from where I'm standing, I think one of the big benefits with a fractional CMO is that person's typically going to work with many different companies, many different industries. And I think the best ideas, they rarely come from the industry that you're in. Because what happens in the boardroom is, hey, what's our competition doing? They go out and we can reverse engineer just about any marketing campaign. And so all that marketing kind of starts to look the same. And in marketing, we teach an acronym called AIDA, AIDA, which stands for Attention, Interest, Desire, and Action, which guides all marketing communications. And the attention, is important because if your marketing doesn't grab attention, you don't get to finish that up. You don't get to go any further in the conversation. So I think that's extremely important, but that fractional CMO can really bring their experience across different industries, different businesses. And most of the ideas, most of the great ideas that work well, I've grabbed from a different industry. I've brought it into my current industry. I've obviously made changes and updates to help it fit. But those typically, I found, have the best success rate.
I love that, because if you think about it, the opportunity to leverage multiple industries, multiple size of organization, life cycles of organization, that fractional executive is able to pull the best from all of them, right? And can definitely forecast the landscape a little bit more, with a lot more clarity, and drive the right questions to set the right strategy.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So That's awesome. Well, all right, people. So that is the Fractional Edge for today. I want to thank my co-host, Jason Huett, for being a part of my little podcast today. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast, share with your fellow CEOs, executives, owners, small, medium, even large businesses, because this is the future. Fractional executives as part of your workforce planning is really what is going to give your organization the competitive edge. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks. Take care. Thank you for tuning in to the Fractional Edge. We hope you enjoyed our insightful discussions and feel inspired to unleash your competitive edge.
Remember to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with the latest episodes. You can also connect with our podcast guests to benefit from their expertise and explore collaboration opportunities by visiting our website, thefractionaledge.com. Join us next time as we continue to explore the power of workforce planning and fractional executives in today's competitive business landscape. Until then, take care and keep growing.